Welcome back, you guys. Waterbox Live, coming at you every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern.
Favorite day of the week. It's Wednesday. We're here with you, and we're talking about something pretty cool today about how to find the quality livestock, fish, corals, for your tank that you're setting up. Like, how do you know where to get your supplies and fish and stuff, and how to know that it's the best quality?
Yeah, and we got a special guest here for you guys to talk about this wonderful, important topic. Like, share, subscribe. Keenan, drop that intro.
Woo! Love that intro every time. Welcome back. So we have a great show ahead. We have an awesome special guest, but we have a pretty big thing to announce that's starting. I think we should probably start with that.
We do. We've been waiting a long time to get this going. Unfortunately, because of the COVID thing that happened, it put a little bit of a wrench in this build. But starting next week, we are doing the frag build.
All right.
Been waiting a long time to get this going.
Yeah, so this is exciting. So we are taking our 105.4 frag and doing a 10-week build on it with some pretty amazing equipment and everything going on it. So you have to stay tuned to see what we're doing with it. But not only that, is giving a giveaway.
Yes, that is a really good reason to tune in. Not the only reason to tune in.
Not the only reason, hopefully.
Yeah, we're doing a giveaway. So we're giving away a frag 105.4 with the lighting and everything.
Oh my goodness.
So you got to stick around for that. You definitely want to tune in next week to figure out how you can enter to win that. But this is a 10-week build?
10-week build.
10 weeks of this frag. We're going to go from A to Z. Everything you want to know about setting up one of these bigger reef tanks, from the live rock, the sand, the lighting, the filtration. We're going to go from A to Z.
A to Z, from when it gets to your door to all the way getting the livestock in it. And we're going to just, simplify it for even the person that's never had a tank before, that you can set up a 100 and something gallon tank with no problem, and we'll kind of guide you from start to finish. So it's going to be an awesome build. And the giveaway of a frag is crazy. So
you're going to want to tune in for that one.
Yes, tune in for that one. But today we do have our special guest. Let's introduce him. We have Scott Crowe from OSA. Welcome.
Woo!
What is happening, baby?
We are so excited to have you, and you're going to help us talk about getting quality fish and livestock for your tank.
Let's do it.
All right, well, we're going to do a quick Ask Jess segment real quick, as we got some questions sent in this week, so we'll be right back, Scott. All right.
Alrighty, Jess, we got some questions. We got 3 really good questions this week. The first one's coming from Freddie.
Hello.
He says, hey, Jess, he's looking for recommendations for the filtration on a Cube 20. So he's planning to keep live rock, soft corals, 3 to 4 easy fish. And he's also asking, should he do a water change weekly or every 2 weeks?
So, Freddie, your Waterbox Cube is going to come with, right out of the box, it's going to have the pump that you need, filter sock, carbon, filter sponges, and it also has some bio material in there. If you're going to do a live rock and live sand, leave out the bio, balls, we would call them. You don't really need those, but the sock, filter sponges, and carbon are all good and set to go to use. And then if you wanted to add a little filtration down the road, you could always do something like a small skimmer. And do change your media once per month, roughly. As far as water changes, is on a small tank, if you could do a small one every week, it would be better, just because you're replenishing all the trace elements and stuff that you would have to need for corals. But if nothing else, at least every 2 weeks would do as well. Just keep an eye on those nutrients, because small tanks do build up nutrients faster. So
cool. So there you go, Freddie. That was more than one question, by the way.
that was a big bundle of them.
So the next question is coming from Adam. He says he has 2 20-gallon cube tanks, 1 reef, 1 freshwater. That's awesome. With both of them, I'm always finding fish in the sump, the back of the tank. Once they get in there, it's really hard for me to get them out. Do you have any tips on how to stop this from happening?
Yes, so some fish are naturally going to jump more than others. If they're getting chased, they're going to be likely to jump. Some fish are just prone to naturally jumping. At that point, I suggest going ahead and just putting a lid on your water box.
Yeah.
So we use here for all of our tanks the D&D jump guard.
Mm-hmm.
Super easy, do-it-yourself kind of lid, easy to make fit to the cube or any size tank that you have. There are some fancier options out there for like custom acrylic lids. You can check out our Facebook user group, and they have tons of beautiful lids that people have gotten from a lot of different companies.
Yeah,
Check them
definitely
out,
hop on that group because you can see there's a ton of Cube 20 owners, and you can see what brands, what custom ones they're using. Great place for all that feedback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty. So thank you, Adam, for that question. The next one's coming from Joe. He says, when I'm feeding my fish, is it better to feed one larger meal a day or break it into a couple smaller feedings throughout the day? I have one tang, clowns, and then a handful of smaller fish.
We've had a couple shows on feeding and stuff before, and general consensus I usually give people is, we tend to overfeed very easily in our aquarium. So one meal is going to probably keep you reined in on your feeding. I usually say everyone gets a couple bites, keep it really small and simple. They don't need a lot of food, except for something like tangs where they do benefit from algae being added to the aquarium during the day, and then a normal feeding in the afternoon. Clownfish and other, basic small fish once a day is plenty good for them. If you do multiple feedings, you tend to feed more overall. It's just going to be bad for nutrients.
Cool. Great answer. Jess dropping all of the knowledges. And Ask Jess. If you guys want to ask questions to Jess every week, email askjess@waterboxaquariums.com, and you'll get your questions answered live.
Look forward to hearing from you.
So,
All
good
right,
deal.
Back to Scott.
Scotty!
Woo! Hey! Welcome back.
So if you guys don't know Scott, Scott's a good friend of Waterbox. Scott has been around supporting Waterbox as a brand since day one. He joined us in Germany, Nuremberg, Germany for Interzoo 2018 for the official global launch of the brand. So Scott, we appreciate you, man. You're
Awesome. And you got to watch the whole company start from pretty much scratch and then turn what it turned into.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So I'm going to let Jess kind of jump into what we're talking about here with in regards to finding and sourcing quality fish and plants, your retail store, and we're also talking about, most importantly, Scott's new store that he just
right. And I was saying, Scott's like the perfect person to have kind of brought in on this conversation because he just opened a new, larger location. I mean, talking huge. Major upgrade from his existing original store, and he's doing it right, and it shows, and get nothing but great feedback from his customers and everyone that deals with him. So he's a perfect person to kind of bring on and say, okay, look, now you have your aquarium, you're looking for your fish, you're looking for coral. What do I look for? How do I know that I'm getting the right stuff, that I'm going to the right place, and where do I even start? And it can be very daunting for people. So we kind of want to bring in someone who's running a successful store to tell us how they're doing it and what customers should be looking for.
Sure.
Let's do it.
So Scott, let's start with the fish. Let's go saltwater, freshwater fish. What do you do when you guys are sourcing your saltwater fish? I mean, what's your process? What should your potential customers be looking for when they're buying new fish?
The customers usually always obviously they want a healthy fish. They want a good quality fish that is healthy, it's feeding very well, especially if they're looking for an oddball or just anything like that. They want to be successful. So the biggest issue we run into is to make sure that fish is really healthy for them before they even start off, right? We want them to be successful. That's the whole part of this whole industry, right? We want the customer to do fantastic and love this and share their passion for it. So what we pretty much do is we get the fish eating very strongly. We do a lot of frozen foods, but before they even hit our tanks is the medication and everything we put inside of it. So we do we'll do freshwater dips. We use a lot of quick cure. We use copper. We use Metro in our frozen foods, and it's really pumping those fish up, and along with very heavy water changes as well.
Great.
Yeah, sounds awesome. And by, how are you selective about where you get your fish from?
That's a really good question. What happens is any sort of shop, LFS, is going to build that relationship with a special dealer that they like the most, right? Over time, and they find that person. But one of my top favorite things to do is hand selecting fish. That is like the coolest thing ever. I like, especially on freshwater more, but saltwater, when you can see, when a shop can see the fish at a wholesaler's and they see it swimming, they're looking at it, that is to me one of the coolest things ever, because yes, I want that fish. So there's a lot of things that go into it.
That's awesome. Yeah, being able to see the fish and you already know it's healthy before it even gets to you, where it's at, and then you take all the extra precautions. And then also making sure that the customers get a fish that's eating and is disease-free. That's stepping them in the right direction to not deal with. And then you have a lot of people that come into this and they get a fish and it's got ick or some kind of disease, and it's just such a bad start for them.
Yeah, Scott, I like that you mentioned, you want these hobbyists, but even the new hobbyists to be successful, because that's what keeps them in the hobby. That's what helps them grow as hobbyists. So being successful right off the bat is so important.
It's extremely important, right? Because you want them to love it and to get into it. Let's face it, saltwater is not a cheap hobby to get into, but it's very addicting. We love it, but you want them to be successful to move forward, because if they take those steps backward, the thing they're going to say is, they're having so many issues and they're don't get a fish tank, right? Mm-hmm. Because they weren't successful the first time. But if we help them, we guide them, we give them the right fish for the setup they have. We're not giving them fish that aren't going to work for their setup. They're happy and they're moving forward.
Right.
Absolutely.
Love it.
So for freshwater, is it generally pretty much the same practice that you have on the freshwater side? I know saltwater can be considered more sensitive and people, consider more disease related to saltwater, but I feel like you probably have to have similar precautions to freshwater fish as well.
Freshwater the same. Freshwater is very, for us, keeping up on pHs. More heavier water changes on freshwater. We do, just because of how many fish we go through. You know what I'm saying? We stock the tanks very heavily, and you're running a lot of bio. So that's around the same exact thing, but just a different way. We're using more Paragard, we use some copper. It depends on the application, it depends on the fish. Even on the saltwater side, not all saltwater fish can do well in copper, so you got to take and choose what's going to do well with what.
Speaking of copper, so when a customer goes in and they get a fish that's in copper or some kind of medication, we alert them because they've got to be careful with using that water in their system.
Yeah, you have to be careful using that water. So obviously, you don't want to get a bag, get something, float the bag, and just be like, I'm going to dump it in. We're that, guys. It is time for acclimation. So you want to get a drip acclimator, and you want to take your bag, open it up, have a container to hold it in, and let that drip for about 45 minutes to an hour. You really want to double, a little more than that, the water volume. You use a net, catch the fish out, and put it inside your tank. You want to be very careful on this. And the other thing is, too, you got to think about, too, any sort of we'll use hyposalinity. That's another thing. So if using copper and hyposalinity, you got to keep that in mind, because you got to acclimate. That's almost like if someone just threw it in, going from Antarctica to the middle of the desert.
Yeah, in case anyone doesn't know, hyposalinity is a way to fight parasites and stuff, is actually that the salt level in the system is dropped down to a low enough level where the parasites don't tend to live. So if you take your lower salinity, say 0.16 or something, and drop them all the way into your reef tank, it's going to be a big shock for them. And then anything that has medication in it, never put into a reef tank or anything with inverts, because those can't handle medication.
Yeah, and that's why you guys hear us a lot on Waterbox Live talking about the acclimation and how important it is, because you don't know what the parameters are, the water that it's coming from. So it's just important to take that time, take that extra step to make sure your animals get adjusted.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And then
alrighty, let's jump into coral. Everybody's favorite. Scotty is the master of the coral. So tell us about, how you're
the master of the coral.
Yeah.
All right, let's explain on that a little bit better. So not only has he expanded his retail location to a new big facility, but he also has a large coral farm that's been going over the last roughly a year, right? You want to say you started that around a year ago?
Yeah, about a year ago. So when they say Scotty, they mean we as a team. That's my biggest thing. This is a massive group effort to make all this work, right? And we have some people like Chris, Cass, Allie. These guys know more about that than I could ever, because it's so awesome sharing that information with people that do what they love every single day. Allie, come on over here. Watch this. Slide on down.
Hey.
This is Salty Allie.
So we do, our biggest thing is, when it comes down to corals, is our culture of corals. Why? Because our world is changing fast. Our world is changing extremely fast. And also, I feel like, as in the position that we are now, along with other stores and everyone else, we should all be responsible for where we're putting these animals. I feel like the old school mentality was that these things are just replaceable. That is the wrong mentality. I'm talking about on fish. I'm talking about on corals, the entire industry, right? You're putting them in glass boxes, you know what I'm saying? We're now responsible for these animals to give them the best quality of life as possible. And that's why I feel like the aquaculture is, where we can take these animals, we can grow them, we can grab, like do microfragmentations and take them to one tank, to the other tank. And then we're teaching not only responsibility of the aquarium industry, how many people do you think get into it, love it, and they want to share that, right? Because that's what it's all about. It's like you're doing like what marine biologists would do on a public level, but we're doing that as hobbyists, and we're right there with them. We're moving so forward, and I feel like we're right now like in the front line of this. This industry is the best to be in right now.
Yeah, and I also feel by like aquaculture and your corals and conditioning them in different, growing conditions and being in captivity for a while, that you're also giving your customer a much hardier coral.
100%. Yeah.
Absolutely, definitely. I mean, the coral's already acclimated to tank conditions, and they just seem to do well. And they're healed, they're cut, they're healed, they're brought here. They seem to do it really, really well.
Yeah, and you're not taking it from the ocean. You're not impacting the environment, which is really important.
Yeah.
You also you don't run into all those awful like parasites too. It's super clean over there, and we avoid all of that by getting it from there. Which is nice.
Awesome.
Love it.
So what are some other things that you want, like people that are getting into this or looking to find livestock or just a quality like retail store? Like what are things that you think have contributed to, customers coming back always, and, is it just guiding them the right way, always having what's available, to them? Like you've done so well, everyone loves your store. Like what is your main contributors?
Helping people. Like, I feel like that is what it is, right? You run it. The greatest advertising you can do is by helping someone. Someone has a major problem, you help them solve that problem, and that is the greatest thing, because sometimes they're led down a wrong path or weren't told something the right way. Like saltwater, how many times did you do something that was very unsuccessful in the beginning, but you were led down that long line and you were just going down a bad path? When you give people the right information, the best information, and honest information, they're successful and they move forward. And that's one of the greatest things you can do.
Yeah, so if you have like a store that you go to, and you go there and no one's really trying to give you advice or really guiding you in a direction, they're willing to sell you anything, the tanks aren't clean, like those are places you want to avoid for success. Like you are not going to be successful if they're not looking to help you, if you're not getting the highest quality of livestock and support.
Important to look out for the guys that are ethically selling these animals, and I love that you say that, Scott, about helping people, because just like you, that's why me and Jess stand here every single week. I mean, if, we're here to help these hobbyists that are buying new tanks to be successful, because that's why we're here. We need them to be successful. So that's good.
100% true. And that's why we did so much with the Waterbox system, because you think about it, right? I don't have to go in and show somebody how to do the plumbing or do this or do that, right? You got a stand, you got a tank, right? Now you have the plumbing all set up, very easy to hook up, and then the sump system, which it's very simple, it's streamlined, and that's one of the greatest things that we got into for it.
Yeah, I've said from the very beginning, I talk about this with Jess even on the show sometimes, about how, back, you rewind 20 years ago when you had to, like, when you buy a tank and then you get a stand, you're like, all right, now how do I plumb this thing? You're like going to the hardware store 25 times, trying to figure out buying like 3 different kinds of glue, making a huge mess. Half the time it leaks. Those days are over.
Those days are over. But for the DIY guy, though, right? Because we can turn anything into a DIY project.
Oh, yeah.
That's what the coolest thing about it is. You can do from someone just getting into it, that's just beginner, to the intermediate, to the die-hard DIY guy that is like, we're putting this system in the basement. We're putting down our own system on this. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about this hobby is, like, you can go with the standard configuration, but there's a natural tendency for hobbyists to love to re-engineer or create their own system. They take the base system and they just create this hugely complex, biotope, I guess, with all the controllers and the customized plumbing. It's great.
Yeah,
I love it. I'm sometimes like, whoa, that's more money than my car has ever cost.
Yeah, if you go to our user group, it's crazy. Like people, they've got special lights in there and control boards, and like they've done the plumbing in different ways, and it's just like it's as expansive as you want to be. But it's come so far because we've been doing this for so long. It's nice to have that ability to just jump right into a saltwater aquarium and really not have any confusion.
Right.
And then find a local, a quality place to get your livestock and advice, and you're up and rolling.
Can you imagine, Scott, if we had the resources like we do now with all the YouTubers and Waterbox Live, and when you first started keeping aquariums, it's almost like to be successful is so much more easier, so much easier now than it was before all
And there's so much information. The only thing that gets difficult is a lot of guys out there is the problem is sometimes there's too much, right?
Yeah.
There's too much information. You got someone telling you this. You got someone telling you this from over here and this. And which is the best way, anybody getting into it, best thing I can do is kind of find something and stick to it. But then you're going to find this grain of salt, this happy little room that works for you. You might take a little bit from here and a little bit from here. But that's what's cool about it. You get to do your research. But all because this person said one thing and this person said another, it doesn't mean they're wrong. They just have a different way of doing it.
Right.
Yes, there are a lot of different ways to do it. And, finding someone that you believe in or who's doing it successfully and follow their way kind of helps guide you in that direction. So, that's why I say, like, a place that has beautiful corals and healthy fish and beautiful display tanks probably going to guide you in a better direction than somewhere that doesn't.
Right.
It's all about the quality of what you're getting from livestock to advice, and that comes from a quality local fish store.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes. I gotta ask though, okay, what is your favorite fish? I just randomly always have to know.
My favorite fish?
Uh-oh.
Man, it depends whether we're talking saltwater or we're talking freshwater.
One of each. One of each. I'll give you one of each.
Man, all right. My favorite saltwater fish, probably. All right, so the dragon moray eel. I have to say,
there you go.
My favorite. Yeah.
Saltwater fish alive. Like, that is the coolest, right? But but how do you not like? I love the way lionfishes look. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is like the craziest looking fish ever. So, like, there's so many options.
There has to be one that's like deeper in your heart. Like, I always feel like there's always one that you come back to and you're like, that's the one. Like,
If I had to say the one, the golden puffer. I love.
Oh yeah.
If anybody ever watched me with a dog face, I'm always like, "Hey, little guy, oh, you're just so cute." I love you.
Yeah, they
fair.
have a lot of personality. Yeah, they're cool fish.
All right, freshwater.
Freshwater? Oh man, now
I feel like that would be the hardest.
For freshwater, I like a lot of different stuff. I like a lot of color and things like that. My favorite freshwater fish ever is called an Amara wolffish, which is just a wicked rare fish from South America. But in general, for color, I think super red zebrums are the coolest. Like, they're awesome. Like, if my husband was like, "You need a super red zebrum, and you need a super red."
That's a fair answer. I will take that.
I want to tell the audience too. Everyone that's watching, post your favorite fish, whether it's freshwater or saltwater, in the comments.
I always love to know
it.
this. It's one of my top questions I always ask people. Is like, what's your favorite fish? So I just can't help but to always ask that one. So, all right. Well, speaking of which, for your store is Scott has provided us with a nice video of his new location, doing a little walkthrough. We're going to check that out. We loved having you on here, Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. You gave us a lot of great information, and we're really happy to see how successful you're doing.
Yes. Thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate it.
Keep on the roof, baby. Woo!
Because the audio is not on.
All right, so Scott, you're still here with us. Tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here.
Joe, let me see what they're seeing over there. Oh, there's me.
Can you see what you're seeing?
Okay, he probably can't see it. So he's just showing basically his display floor. He's got tons of the artificial plants. And we saw a lot of water box in there. And looks like this is a massive planted section.
Love that plant
I love
system.
the tear down. Lots and lots of beautiful plants. And just tons of tanks everywhere.
Your store is massive now. I mean, you have so much going on, and you did such a beautiful job setting it up. I mean, it's probably, in my opinion, one of the most well set up stores in the country. You just have so much selection, whether it's saltwater, freshwater. It's great.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And I like everything just looks so perfectly placed, like all display tanks and the entrance and stuff. And you got some beautiful inspiration in there with your fresh and saltwater displays. I love when you first come in, the 2 tanks, one is fresh, one is salt, and they're side by side. I think that's really cool. Like people get to automatically say, oh, I like this one better, I like this one better. It helps guide them.
There's no shortage of water boxes at OSA.
And we got our saltwater section, lots and lots of corals, a lot of that coming over from your farm, right?
All of it, everything comes from the farm now.
Everything, wow.
Wow.
That is very impressive to be sustained by your coral farm.
I mean,
Which
look
helps.
at this. It's massive. There's so much coral. There's so much fish. Anything you could ever want, when you're
Hey,
setting up.
I see that. That's a water box.
Nice water box you have there.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Oh, Freshwater Joe.
Look at all that driftwood.
Oh,
my
man, if you guys
goodness.
are looking to aquascape, I mean, look no further. Look at this selection of woods that they have there. All the different aquascaping material. I mean, there's just nothing like that.
Beautiful. Well, I say, man, we've seen the original location. You maxed out as much space as you could in that one, and you have definitely expanded absolutely beautifully. So congratulations again.
Yeah, good job, man. It's awesome.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Scott. We'll talk to you later.
All right, guys. Thank
Bye.
you.
See ya.
Okay.
All right. And for everyone who may have missed it in the beginning, tune in next week. We are starting our frag series, 10-week build. It's going to be pretty epic. Amazing things happening with it.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people in here that were a little bummed we weren't giving something away this week, but that's why you got to tune in next week. Okay, because we're giving away a system that's worth thousands of dollars. And this is going to be an epic build because we're using some new equipment on it that you guys
Yep.
haven't seen yet. It's going to be really amazing. The amount of knowledges that we're going to drop through it is going to be substantial.
Get your knowledges. And as Scott would say, it's going to be maxed out.
Yeah,
So it's going to be awesome. So tune in next week. Really enjoyed this episode having Scott on here.
Yeah, it's
and
good fun.
We'll be back with you next Wednesday at 6.
Thank you guys. You guys
See ya.
rock.